Okay, everybody, let's get into it. So basically what do you need to know? This video is about reduction of retirement benefits. This is not a moment where we should have applause. None of this at all. None of that. Instead, we should have sad faces, frowny faces. There was basically a proposal that will be put into a bill at some point and submitted from basically this group right up here, Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a Social Security cap trust fund solution initiative. What this is a document that basically supports reducing people who are in the 50, 75, and 100th percentile, or 90th and 100th percentile of receiving retirement benefits. So just to put it simply, a lot of you who are receiving retirement benefits, a lot of you who will receive retirement benefits in the future, if you are in the 50th percentile, this will ultimately reduce the amount of money you can receive, because what will happen is they won't increase your benefits as much each year based off the cost of living adjustment. Now, to make it simple, we're going to first go through the article Newsweek provided on it. Once we get through the Newsweek article, then we're going to go to the actual white paper related to essentially what they want to do. The reason we're doing it this way is to get more people to have a better understanding of what's going on. If we go straight to the white paper, you're not going to get it. We're going to start with the feel-good stuff here, kind of roll into it so you understand what they're trying to do, and then go to the white paper. Now, if you're wondering my opinion, my opinion is very simple. There were promises made that we, as recipients of retirement and future recipients of retirement, there were promises made that we should be able to sue over. As a result of the 1937 ruling from the Supreme Court, technically what we pay in for retirement benefits, it is a tax. However, as you know, politicians have consistently made promises throughout the years. As a result of that, that just create an unfair situation where we have a belief that we are actually due the money as a legal right, like a right to bear arms, a right to say what we want, a right to, basically raise children, have children, property rights. We don't actually have a property right, constitutional level interest in retirement benefits, which means that you're going to be seeing more erosion in the future related to things that you've paid for that you should be able to get access to. Now, if I sound sick, this is the best of the middle of the day. That's why we're doing the videos right now, because I took all the medication. I'm a little bit all over the place because of it, but this is the best I'm going to be throughout the day. That's why we're not doing the videos later in the day like we normally would. Let's get into it. Newsweek article. Here we go. Social Security COLAs to be capped for high earners under this new proposal. A new proposal suggests limiting annual Social Security cost of living adjustment increases for the highest earners, a change that could help stabilize the program's finances without taking away inflation protections from most beneficiaries. So what they're saying here is, which I completely disagree with, but you might be into it, is that if you receive retirement benefits, and those retirement benefits go ahead and pay out a certain amount, like a certain percentage of what's available. Are you getting 50% plus of the available retirement benefits, 70% plus of the available retirement benefits, 90% plus of the available retirement benefits? If you are, they're looking at potential options to not give you as much of a cost of living adjustment increase each year so that they can help pay for essentially the poor, which in my opinion is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. You paid for this, you rely on it now that you're retired, and once again, they're trying to go ahead and give you less. The people who paid for it, the people who paid for SSI, they're trying to screw over. The people who paid for welfare, they're trying to screw over. The people who paid for SSDI, they're trying to screw over. It is disgusting. And some of you are sitting back going like, oh, I don't think it's a real big deal. Okay, look, this group is a very, very well-funded group. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Very well-funded, not just in the immediate sense of the people who are partaking in it, but those interests that are interacting around it. Very well-funded committee, okay? When they make these get a lot of eyes on them. So, if you're sitting there going, oh, well, it's never going to happen. You don't know that. It's something being pumped and primed right now in Congress. Why it matters. Social Security is facing growing financial pressure. The retirement trust fund is projected to run out within the next decade. 8 or 9-ish years is what they're looking at. If Congress does not take action to shore up the finances, retirees could see their benefits cut by around 24% in late 2032. 2031, 2032, that's realistically where this thing is going to happen. However, it might happen sooner. Why? A lot of people are okay. So originally, remember how like all the white papers that were presented to Congress said 2035, that's when they're going to run out. Then it was 2034. Then it was 2033. Now we're in late 2032. There's a problem that they horribly miscalculated when it comes to when the trust funds for retirement benefits will actually run out. Here's basically the detail. They're running all of their metrics on a 1.9 fertility rate for women, meaning that women are going to make a lot of kids that will replace the workers that we currently have. Now, it's actually 1.6, and it's about to go a lot lower when we get the new statistics coming out. The reason why is that men don't want to approach women because women have become super empowered to say online how much they hate men. I don't know why this was such a feminine bolster thing. I don't know why, but at the end of the day, you know, whether it was the women don't need men, I'd rather spend the night with a gorilla. I'd rather spend the night with, you know, a lion, a tiger, a bear, oh my, whatever. Okay. So now men don't want to potentially try and approach a woman in a dating sense to show interest because, to be fair, just to be very clear with this, they fear that they might get in some legal trouble where they'll get canceled, and that some woman will go online and make a video about how could he only did this, I expected this, you know, here's a video of us getting to the restaurant, so on and so forth. As a result of that, and a lot of retired people are like, whatever, I don't give a shit about young people dating, I don't give a shit about young people getting it on and making kids that go to work. Retired people, you are the closest group to having the most to lose from younger people not getting married, having kids, and raising actually productive humans. I don't mean just having kids, the father is an idiot and runs away, and the mother has to take care of them, and she's on every welfare program there is. I don't mean that situation, because, you know, the kids, you know, have a very difficult time then becoming the future leaders of America unless they really wanted to climb out of the hole, right? Climb all the way up the corporate ladder of being their own thing, invent something new, whatever. I mean our standard middle class, which includes doctors, which includes lawyers. I mean our standard middle class. We are not producing enough children. So there's this big problem, and people are just like, they don't even care. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like, I don't know if you have even looked at fertility rates, what's going on. You know, it's not that the women can't make children. It's just that the guys won't approach them, and the guys are afraid. And to be fair, like, you know, it's one of those things where there's a lot of things now available to young men that take their interest away from women. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, we took away video games. The amount of interest men would have in women would drastically shoot up. If we took away those 3D goggles, right? Those artificial intelligence, like, you know, 3D whatever goggles that are now like a big hit, instantly, like, men's interest in women would shoot up. Okay. If we got back to a society that had, you know, women basically being presented as things men want, right? And I remember a lot of women are like, okay, so, you know, if we have a woman that's, and we do an article about how she's a super CEO and she's a super this and a super that, that is not actually what men see in the relationship. They see somebody spending their nights with somebody, not somebody who's always at the office, yada, yada, yada. Because remember, men are the visual. Women are like the, well, okay. And so I'm going to tell you a real quick secret on this, because this is actually an extremely important thing, because men are a lot to blame here. And I'm going to tell you something that I think is really important, really, really important. I used to think, when it comes to relationships, that the way it worked was that men would try to create themselves to be the success story that women would be looking for to tell to their mom and their friends and stuff like that. That's what the design was, so that, they would make more kids, those kids would work, and retired people would be able to have their retirement. That's the reality. Because if you don't have lots of new kids being born and lots of new kids going to work, retirement benefits fail at an exponential rate. Okay. So the problem is that because of a lot of the new woke stuff, right, where the women have lots of earrings and lots of tattoos. And remember, there's different niches of individuals that want to tap into that, where they're like, oh, I really like all of your tattoos. So that's fine. But that's not the normal average. Most guys are into that. Like if a guy sees that a woman has implants in her head to create horns and lots of, cranial accessories all over the place, not standard pearls and diamonds, but rather, all of these, like, let's say that she's got earrings on that have, basically tiny little stuffed animals hanging off of them from an anime. It's not the norm. Like you're putting yourself into a niche area for a niche individual to have to want that. So what happened was women stopped trying to be the thing that was cool and sexy and fun to men. And so what happened was then men got confused. They were like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this, because men were like, I'm trying to make myself into the thing that basically she's going to want to view as successful. Because remember, if you went and saw a guy with tons of tattoos all over his body and this and that was a guy who had given up, didn't care, whatever, and wanted to shape themselves in something completely outside of what is the normal acceptable thing in society, right? So that was kind of like your outlier. But then the average group of men were like, okay, well, I want to make myself into the successful thing that some woman is going to want. I might not be the most handsome, might not be the most tall, might not be the most muscular, might not be the most fit, might not be the smartest, but I've become a successful person that could potentially be a supportive individual. That was the idea. The problem with that idea is that the parents of the daughters did not instill in the daughters what the daughters should go look for in men. The parents of the daughters were like, just go be happy. Find somebody that makes you laugh. Find some so on and so forth. So there was this generational just pull apart where the younger women were like, I'm going to go do the things that make me feel amazing. And, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. And that started to pull and erode away from what men were expecting to look for in women. And women were like, I'm going to go be this. This is going to be my thing. So what happened was a lot of men, especially with these women, they kind of looked at the situation. They said, okay, well, is she able to understand the success that I've created and appreciate it for what it is? The correct answer is most modern women do not. You've seen a bunch of videos where they're like, I expect the guy to earn $500,000. I expect the guy to earn $250,000. I expect the guy to earn blah, 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 blah. And that's not realistic. And so at the end of the day, what happened was men became really, like young men, they became confused because they're like, how do I attract a woman who is super heavy into like LGBTQ plus, supporting, the Muslim agenda at the same time, and, hyper feminism. Like, how do I support that as a man and be masculine? And also, now she's got, rainbow hair. Like, how do I approach that? What do I do? How do I attract somebody that's going to fit into having, a life with somebody? And so now what we have is a problem where men are not attracted to the modern female. And the modern female is as free as she's ever been, but she's very lonely and she's very angry. And every other day we see an article come out about where are all the men, and then Vice will come out with some article about how evil men are and how you should be happy with all your cats. And so, as a result of that, I don't think a lot of people realize how severely important this entire situation actually is for retirement benefits, for disability benefits. People work, they pay, FICA taxes, SECA taxes too, self-employed ones. And when they do that, that's what pays for the disabled. That's what pays for the retired. It's not the money you put in. That was spent decades ago. It's the money that the new people are paying in FICA taxes right now. So we have a massive amount of problems on the horizon. And the big one is men and women, they don't have that like Judaism, Christianity, have a family, make some kids, go on family trips. They don't have that anymore. And the big problem is that, and in my brain, and I realized this like a year ago. It was even less than a year ago. I realized this. I no longer look to see what women think is going to be successful. And I don't try to mirror myself on trying to be successful for a woman to like that or choose that. Because I've realized that most women have no effing clue what they think success is. Like a lot of women are like, oh, they have a nice car. There's a lot of people in debt over a nice car. Oh, they have a nice house. It's a lot of people with a house that they can't afford. Oh, they have a good job. Well, is it a job that's going to last a while? Oh, what's a good job? Oh, he works at he works at a tattoo parlor. He does, or he's an accountant. Okay. Or, or he earns this much. And I think what happened was guys lost faith in the model that we used to assess whether or not we were doing the right thing to be seen as a successful, sexy thing to women. And women went full femininity mode, which was they don't care about being sexy for what men want to see. They just care about feeling good. And that feeling good is not what attracts men. And I hate to say it. I mean, it's, sure, a woman that is positive and happy about herself, yes. But I don't mean that. I mean like where she is actively trying to separate herself from whatever the design of what men traditionally find beautiful, nice, sexy, attractive, whatever. And it's an attractive personality, an attractive this. And so now you have this dynamic where retirement and disability benefits are and that's the thing. Like this article, this report, it's all completely wrong. I mean, the math is there, but it's based off of wrong math. And let me show you. Hold on. The trajectory over here. Hold on, over here. Yeah. So if they F over a bunch of retired people, right, and then take away a bunch of their cost of living increase, so you have like different lines up here, right? You got the, so what do you have? You've got the cap at the 50th percentile. So if they screw you over, if you're receiving 50% and above of retirement, cap at the 75% percentile and cap at the 90th. So what you see here is them reducing your benefits by not giving you cost of living adjustment increases. And then down here, the revenue stays the same. The revenue isn't going to stay the same. The revenue right around here is going to dive downwards. So this, even if they screw you over and take a bunch of your money with the cost of living decrease, right, where you're not getting enough to have for the next year, which they already do, like your COLA ain't enough for the next year. But even if they F you over and take your money, right, and don't give you a proper cost of living adjustment increase, it's still not anywhere near the revenue problem. That's a billions upon billions upon billions of dollar problem right here. Oh, technically, sorry, it's trillions of dollar problem right here. And then the graph is wrong. The graph is based off of revenue staying the same. Revenue is going to die. Revenues, I will definitively, with absolute crystal clear precision, state to you, knowing at every fiber of my body that the revenue we pull in FICA taxes is going to dive. Sure, Trump is doing a much better job with the economy. Sure, we might see a bump up there. Sure, things might increase a little bit. But over the longer period, beyond Trump, I can guarantee you that there are not enough people being born in this nation that are part of the middle class, that are part of the middle upper class, that are going to be able to afford to pay the taxes to pay for everybody's retirement benefits and everybody's disability benefits over the next 10 years. Remember, disability benefits, their trust fund goes out to like the 2050s. It's covered, but that's because the retired people haven't taken it yet. They are saying that what they're probably going to do is take the disability trust fund and put it into the retirement trust fund, which will make the retirement trust fund last 1 year longer. And then the disabled are in the same shit situation that the retired are in. So the problem we are facing here at the end of the day with this whole situation is that we don't have enough kids being born into healthy families that are going to push their kids to do something with their life. And I got to be honest with you, like, I think one of the big problems too is that the system worked really well before, where, and it could have worked either ways. Well, I mean, look, the system originally was like, we'll use the classic Christian one because that's what this country was, to some degree. You had basically a father and a mother, and then they had some kids. Could have been 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, 6 kids, 7 kids. I'm not saying going back to Aggie time, agricultural people time, but like that was your classic method. Now, you really want to grow the population, grow the country, get everybody back to farming. Get everybody on a farm, get them farming. They're going to have a bunch of kids. They're going to work the farm, right? That's that, going back to that. Now, obviously, the internet and video games screw up that situation a bit, but the bottom line is that's how you grow a country. Agriculture, agriculture, agriculture. You get every person out there working. I grew up on a farm. 11, 12, 13 years old, I was out there working, okay? Pulling weeds, working on plants, cutting stuff, throwing rocks into the rock pile on the side of the paddock, all that stuff. My point to you is this fix isn't going to fix shit. And it's going to F over a lot of people who earned not even that much in this country, that paid for a lot of programs, paid for all the taxes. It's just a terrible idea. All right, let's go back to the article. I'm sorry I went off there, but I think you honestly have a better understanding as to what the real problem is with this situation. All right. More than 50 million Americans receive Social Security in retirement, relying on their monthly checks as a steady source of income. Every January, those payments rise thanks to the annual cost of living adjustment, which boosts benefits based on the CPI-W, inflation measure that tracks the spending of urban workers. The goal is to make sure benefits keep up as prices inevitably increase, with next year's rise set at 2.8% beginning in 2026. Now, let me tell you something. Retirement benefits and Social Security benefits become worth less and less each year because the cost of living adjustment of what they actually give you is shit. They played with the math and they screwed you over. You know that. The other jobs that are going to become very unpopular are jobs that are stuck to a payment schedule that's based off of the cost of living adjustment. So every government job out there over the next 10 years is going to become very unpopular, and people aren't going to want to do them. And the quality of people to do them is going to significantly decrease because they're not going to be paying them enough to be able to survive. So as a result of that, just be aware certain types of industries or jobs that are stuck to a payment schedule based upon the increase of what their math comes up with are not going to be popular jobs because nobody's going to want to do them because they will continue to not pay you enough to make it make sense for you to wake up in the morning and go there. All right, what to know? A new white paper published by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the CRFP, these guys, proposes placing a cap on the size of each year's COLA for those claiming the largest Social Security benefits. Everyone would still receive a COLA, but retirees with very high benefits, I mean, over 50% is not very high benefits. It's shit benefits. Typically those, I'm going to get less than that because of the disability field. I just don't make that much. Typically those who have the highest lifetime earnings would see their annual increase limited to a set dollar amount. The report explains how this would work. If inflation in 2035 resulted in a 2% cost of living adjustment and the cap were set at $900, someone receiving a $50,000 benefit per year, which is like a very, very high benefit, right? So, right. So let me give you so if we take, let's do this. Pull up the calculator, right, real quick. Okay, so, so if we take $50,000 and we divide that by 12, that means your monthly payment would be $4,166.66 of retirement benefits. So like all the way at the very upper end of this whole thing, if somebody is receiving just over $4,000, $4,166.66, then this is what they would do to that person. Okay, hold on. All right, what they would do to that person is, if inflation in 2035 resulted in a 2% COLA and the cap were set at $900, someone receiving a $50,000 benefit per year would normally get a $1,000 increase. Okay. Under the new cap, that person would instead receive a $900 increase. Retirees receiving $4,500 or less in benefits would see no change and would get the same COLA as they do under current law. That's if they're only basically screwing over the very, very top. That's not if they start getting into the 75th percentile or what they put the math in there for, the 50th percentile, which just, if you're wondering what that is, Hold on real quick. 2025, let's see, maximum retirement monthly amount. So we take the maximum monthly amount. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay. Maximum Social Security monthly amount is at $5,108. But that's if they waited until they were age 70. Okay. So that's not even the average, like 42 early, the 47 regular. That's the maximum amount. Hold on. Let me see if they have one for around, okay, for those. So the maximum monthly benefit is approximately $4,018 for those, basically. Let's see, who retired their full retire. So if you retired at 67, it would be $4,018. If you retired at 70, it would be $5,108. So let's say 50 percentile, right? So we take 5,100, although that's not even going to give us the proper, because we'd have to pick, because there's not that many of the 5,108ers. So, all right, let's do this. Let's take this will be a closer number. Let's take the 4,018, right? Let's divide that by 2, right? So that gives us $2,009. Okay. So let's say around $2,100, somewhere around there might be the 50 percentile, right? So if you're receiving more than, like, let's say $2,100, then they have a schematic inside this chart for how each year they would reduce how much you would get in actual cost of living adjustment, which is their 50th percentile. Okay, so cap at 50th percentile, right, is this one. So that's how much money they would save, right? They would save money, but still, again, that ain't gonna do shit. That ain't gonna do shit to the trillions of dollars they're missing to make this program work. All right, let's go back. I'm sorry, I get a little upset about this. I'm also on a lot of medication because I'm sick. All right, the CRFP, that's the group who made this, right? That's the committee, says would save money right away and help strengthen Social Security in the long run. It reports that setting the cap at the 75th percentile benefits would save $115 billion over 10 years and cover about 1/10 of the program's long-term funding shortfall. Adjusting the cap to the 50th or 90th percentile could save anywhere from $35 billion to $385 billion. That's taking your money away. That's how they're saving money over a decade, closing between 1/20th and 1/4 of the 75-year solvency gap. The CRFP, the committee, this group again, states a cost of living adjustment cap could meaningfully and quickly improve the solvency of Social Security's trust funds while concentrating adjustments on those who are most able to bear them. I don't think they are. Remember, if somebody had a higher standard of living and earned a lot more money during their life, they usually own shit that costs more money to upkeep. Taxes, property taxes, mowing, pool service, whatever. That's their money. That is their money for retirement. You're effing over the people who paid in more money. It's just, it's their money. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting. Okay, so they're saying, okay, well, this could potentially help the situation, maintaining full inflation protection for most beneficiaries, continuing to maintain inflation. Yeah, so they're saying basically, if they allow the cost of living adjustment for everybody receiving 50% or less, okay, 50% or less, then, well, that's a good thing. We're just going to screw over all the people who are 50% and above. That is horrendous. It's just disgusting. Okay, so continue to maintain inflation protection on an adequate level of benefits for all beneficiaries, which is not true. It's a false statement. And ensuring solvency solutions are spread over more generations. The report concluded it would do so without meaningfully weakening work incentives in the program or enacting nominal benefit cuts or freezes. Who is going to want to pay for retirement benefits when they don't mean anything? Right? Let's say you screw over these people. And instead of them getting what would equate to, let's say, a $3,000 check, they end up with $2,500. At what point do people say, we've had enough, we're not going to pay for this? Because the millennials at this point are like, we don't want to pay FICA taxes. We don't want to pay any of that. We want to invest that. Because any money we put into, retirement and disability and stuff like that is just going to be spent by the government in some way, fashion, or form that's not to our advantage. They can't handle money. They can't be trusted to handle money. So, the millennials at this point, everybody millennial and down is like, please, Give us our money back. Please let us invest our future money into something that will actually work. What happens next? Some lawmakers in Congress have taken heed of the looming shortfall, but there are differing approaches that don't necessarily mean capping COLA increases. The Fair Share Act, introduced by the Democrats Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island and Brendan Boyle of Philadelphia earlier this year, seeks to strengthen Social Security and Medicare by placing a greater burden on top earners. That sounds fancy. That sounds like Washington, D.C. two-step bullshit. Let me explain let me give you what the actual sentence is. This is what it actually is. The actual sentence is, if you steal from those who paid in more to give to those who paid in less, you will somehow magically inspire future generations to keep paying for this. Although the reality is nobody's going to want to pay for this if everybody's losing money and even more is going to the poor. Nobody's going to want to do this. And let me tell you something. There's a lot of people who would still vote for retirement benefits and disability benefits, yada, yada. But the amount of people who don't want to deal with it, the amount of people who have no faith in the future of it, all the young people, all the millennials and younger, they don't want it. They want to take their money and invest it into whatever they think they can invest it in to make their life better. They are looking at SSI as their backdrop. If everything goes to shit and they lose everything, SSI. That's how they're looking at it. Under the proposal, individuals making more than $400,000 a year would pay Social Security taxes on all wages, self-employment earnings, and investment income above that level. Okay. So remember, they're now including investment income. A bipartisan proposal from Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and Democrat of Virginia Senator Tim Kaine would establish a new investment fund separate from the current Social Security trust funds. While the program's existing assets are limited to special use government bonds, this new fund would broaden its portfolio to include stocks, traditional bonds, and other investments in an effort to generate higher returns. Now that actually makes sense. This one, let's see, Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Democratic Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, their plan to create basically a new trust fund that isn't invested in what the government wants to spend it on, but is invested on shit that actually makes money. That makes sense. This total garbage pile does not make sense. All right, next thing, a bipartisan proposal. Okay, cool, got that. So while the program's existing assets are limited to special use government bonds, the new fund will be able to invest in other things. What do you need to know? Screwing over the people that pay for pretty much everything is not the way to do this. We already have special bend points that maximize benefits for the poor. The middle class is already effed over. You know, like when people are like, I don't get it why my Social Security retirement check is so small. I don't get why it's $1,200. That's because you didn't pay anywhere near to what you should be able to get for $1,200. The middle class and up paid for you to get the $1,200. They paid a massive, massive amount for you to get that money. You know, what you paid in was without those bend points. I'm not sure what it could have been, but it might have been 300, 400, 500, maybe somewhere in there. So, the point is, like, we've already got a system with bend points that screws over the middle class. At what point do we take more from these people? Because look, here's the thing. Everybody likes when they're a congressional political person to go, this is what we're going to do for the poor. Everybody likes to do that. But at some point, when you stop promoting the health and happiness and future of the working class, then the system can't end up paying for the poor like it already does. Because you have to keep the middle class happy. You have to keep them working. You have to keep them producing. You have to keep them paying taxes. The taxes of the poor don't pay for shit. They don't. That's why you get such a big amount back from the IRS. You could literally say to all the poor people, if you're earning under, let's say, $30,000, right? If you're earning under $30,000, don't even pay taxes. Don't even file. You could say that. You could, they do require you to, but you could say that to people like that and say, there's no point. Because the amount of taxes paid in are minimal. There's hardly anything going in. So at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where it's like, How much burden are we willing to put on the middle class? And now the real problem is it's a middle class that's not having kids, that's not getting in relationships, that doesn't have a future, can't afford to get out of the rent game, has no mortgage or house buying future potential, which means their entire life, the trajectory is total shit. It's total shit. The number one thing that old people own that's worth something is their house. The entire millennial generation. Hold on, let's see. How many millennials? That's a good question. How many millennials, hold on, own a house? Okay, let's see. Just over half of the millennials are homeowners, with rates reaching around 51 to 52%. Okay, so what are all of the generations called? Let's see if they have any little generations in between. No, these are pretty much the same, yada, yada. Okay, so Generation X, let's look at that. How many houses do Generation X, does Generation X own? Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Around 70 to 72%. Okay, so how many houses does the boomer generation own? Okay, let's see what the percentage is. Okay. Baby boomers own approximately 41% of all real estate in the US. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking at percentage of how many own, what is the percentage? What is the percentage of baby boomers who own homes? Although this is going to be skewed because some of them have passed away, yada, yada, yada. Some of them have already, sold their house to go ahead and be in the sunset part of their life. So, okay, just to be clear, baby boomers, around 74 to 78% of the population owns a home. Although that's skewed because remember, a lot of them are in the sunset period where they're getting rid of their houses. Now you have Generation X at 70-ish%. And then you have millennials, right, at basically 50%. Let's take a look at this. The next ones after that would be then we have the Generation Z. So what are all the, okay, so how many, what's the percentage? What's the percentage of homes that are owned by Generation Z? Now, this is going to be skewed because we're getting into younger people. So 26.1% of Generation Z adults own their homes. So essentially, we got, just to be clear, boomers, we're looking at a 74-ish to 78%-ish, somewhere around there. You've got Gen Xers, the percentage of people that own homes, around 70 to 71%. You got millennials, just above 50%. And Gen Zers are around, 26.1%. So that is very, very clearly an understanding as to how bad the future investment capacity, how wealthy future generations are going to be. Because remember, the poorer the person, the fewer the people who are able to have a nice car, own a home, have a vacation home. Oh, that's a good one. Hold on. What is the percentage of homes? So let's see, vacation homes that are owned by boomers. Let's see what that says. 57% of boomers own vacation homes. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this. Let's see, Generation X. Let's see how many they own. Okay, so 30%. Gen X owns 30% of Gen Xers own a vacation home. Let's see, millennials. All right, let's see how bad millennials are at. I bet this is where you're going to see the biggest dip. Oh, 40 to 43% of vacation homes. Millennials account for 40 to 43% of vacation home buyers. Yeah, but that's not really what I'm asking here. I'm asking for what percentage? I'm not sure. Oh, hold on. It looks like millennials are buying a lot of vacation homes, but that doesn't give me how many of them actually. All right, so there's got to be a dip there because they don't have the money to buy their first home. There's got to be a dip because if 50% of them have, basically a home, 40 to 43 of them can't be the percentage that owns a vacation home on top of that. So that statistic is wrong. But you can see ... where the problem is actually happening. Yeah, I see 2 Tango, 50-year mortgage, average FTB currently is 40. I get it. We're going to have our grandkids sign our future mortgages as the assignees. The point I'm getting at here is that Social Security, retirement benefits, disability benefits, if we keep going the way we are, where we don't have like these classic Jewish Christian families making kids, raising kids, the kids become, doctors, lawyers, technicians, welders, electricians, whatevers. if we don't go back to a model that creates achieving children, I guarantee you these Social Security programs will fail. There is no way to create a social net that will work when you don't have people achieving and getting basically higher paying jobs each year. All right. So just to be clear with this whole thing, this is a horrible, horrible idea. You're stealing money from people who paid for all the poor people. That's not okay. They were basically promised by politicians who lied about how these benefits are basically owned by them. They're screwing over people who actually did the most work, did the most payments. It's not okay. This is something that will uninspire future generations to vote for the continuation of Social Security benefits, which is not good. We need them. We need people to rely on them. We need people to want them. We need people to invest in them. All right. Attorney Walter Hnot, I'm going to go and do the next video in about 5 to 10 minutes. I hope you're doing well. I will catch you all at the next video. Please remember, I don't do Medicare questions. So if you have Medicare questions about all the fraud that's going on, what's happening, please give Medicare a call at 339-226-6287. They answer Medicare questions. They work on Medicare-related stuff. They are Medicare brokers. They can do a tune-up on your Medicare program. Other than that, Attorney Walter Hnot, I'll catch you at the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe. America's Most Viewed. Clicked on subscribe to Disability Attorneys. So if you need help with your disability benefits, you can always reach out. I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful day, and we will go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye.